Podstock.
Hello, 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 and welcome. The entire gang is here on this, the most special of days in Washington off-season, the greatest day. Of course, I'm talking about the day that they have announced the team's throwback uniform for the Washington football team, which we won't call by their other name. Steve is. I made Steve so mad right now with that. It was hilarious.
That isn't that. I mean, Jesus. First of all, okay, so the news is the team announced uniforms, and it looks like the old good Redskins uniforms, minus, except they have a stupid W on the side of the helmet, not the Redskins,
Right, and they
logo.
didn't write Commanders all over the jersey like they love to do now.
Yeah, thank God they did not do that.
It's just blank. I threw on my old like Reebok era throwback. Now,
But my point is this: that's not the real uniform. That's just a please buy crap. We're gonna wear this 3 times a year uniform. That's what it is.
Well, they're gonna wear it 3 times this year, and then they're gonna switch to this next year. Is what they're saying. This is gonna be their full-time uniform in 2026.
Well, hopefully. I mean,
I'm hoping so.
Yeah, no, I mean, Josh Harris has been very public about how much he hated what they had, and he just didn't have time to change it. So they're going back to this or something almost identical to it going forward in 2026. So
I'd love for them to change. If they would change the name, I'd be all in.
Well, they're never going all the way back, but
that's what I want.
Yeah. Well, you're never going to get what you want.
I realize that, but I mean, the uniform is a decent first step, but it's not nearly enough.
Yeah. If this is the home and away uniform, like next year, and go back to wearing white at home. Let's throw back to the old days. I like that. So they're going back to that. They have announced what games they're going to be wearing it at. It's going to be the Seattle game, the game against the Denver Broncos. So, a little rematch of the Super Bowl, put your Super Bowl uniform back on, right? And then the Dallas game, which I believe is a Christmas game, correct? Is that aren't we playing Dallas on Christmas?
I believe so, yeah, because we hate Christmas.
No, I don't think we're playing on Christmas this year.
No,
are we?
Is it?
I gotta look at the schedule again because I was, I think we are, but we are because it's in Dallas. That's right, because I told my sister you're gonna have the game on while I'm over there for Christmas, right? So yes, it is. You are correct.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
So those are the 3 games. I don't know why Seattle. I like that they're wearing this as a throwback versus Dallas and Denver. Because the Denver Super Bowl. I know it's not the greatest team, but that was probably one of the most fun Super Bowls for any Washington fan, right? Like that stomping that Doug Williams gave them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Steve's waiting for the German Shepherd to leave so that Kobe will shut up. Because
I mean, what he's really doing is agreeing with the uniform designation, and he's expressing his dissatisfaction over the current name and the current uniforms. That's what it has nothing to do with the fact that a dog walked by the window,
right?
And it was not his nemesis. The nemesis is the German Shepherd, and that dog has not come around again. It will be, so he will speak up soon.
It was his second nemesis.
That was just a backup dog.
Yeah.
Was there any particular run-in that dog had with his nemesis at all, or he just doesn't like him?
The dog is the jerk. The other dog is
the other dog.
No, the other dog is a jerk and doesn't like anybody.
Hold on, a German being a jerk.
The dog's owner, I saw her in the street and she said, "My dog isn't a very good dog." I was like, "Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
he can't be friendly at all." Yeah,
you're correct. So, because I get excited for anything uniform wise, I posted a little poll on the Hog Size website.
Oh, you did?
On our
the Twitter page.
On our Twitter page, yes. If I posted on our website, it would just be those 5 guys who are always there voting 800 times. It'd be very sad. But on our Twitter page, here are the poll results. There were about 100 responses last I checked. I haven't checked in the last half hour.
What was the question?
The question is, how do you grade the throwback uniform that they put out there. 66% gave it an A plus, 28% gave it an A, and then 6% gave it an A minus. Those were your responses.
Those are the only choices you put?
Yes.
What about B, C, D, and F?
I didn't think those people would really matter
I'm
for
not
this
gonna
poll.
I'm not gonna endorse this stupid poll like this. Do it right or don't do it. I'm giving it a D because it doesn't have the name on it. And what's the point?
Well, the point is it looks better than what they have.
Oh, that's why they're not getting an F. Steve does not endorse this poll that Alex put on the Hogsty Twitter page or X page.
I'm never calling it X. It's always going to be Twitter for me.
Well, all you got to do is just look at the timeline and you'll see those who are of the group of bringing the name back or I won't like anything at all. And those who love the new brand and love going back to the glory days and incorporating it with the team. Now it's just all I know is that there is definitely a group of fans out there, rightfully so, that okay, well we find appreciation. You make some kind of attempt to honor that past,
right?
But that Dan Snyder commie logo is still on that helmet, so it's horrible and it's disastrous and it's disgusting.
Look,
so it reminds everyone of Dan Snyder still, no matter what they do.
I don't think there will ever be a group of fans who love the rebrand. There are people who have accepted it, like myself, and you to an extent, Dave, I think, have accepted it. There are some people who might mildly like it, but it's Pace Picante mild salsa level mild.
No, how would you categorize me?
Rabidly angry and torches and pitchforks level.
Yes, that's fair.
Yeah.
Oh, you also carry an emotional bond with
Steve's
that
very
name
emotional.
And logo that neither one of us have.
It's actually the only thing Steve has ever shown any emotion about in the 10 years I've known him.
I really was really offended.
Yeah.
Deeply by the whole thing, and I refuse to comply.
Yep. But I look. I think it was a good step in the right direction. I don't know how
it is a step in the right direction.
Harris will never be able to go much further. He's doing what he can to go back to the old ways. I think the RFK stuff, which we're going to talk a little bit about RFK later. If you go back to old school looking uniforms like this, even though I never loved the old school uniform, I'll be honest, the 80s uniform was never my thing, but I get it. I get wanting to go back to it.
Right.
Everyone's mad about the W being on the helmet. I agree. It's not as cool as that Art Deco Indian head logo that we had forever. But
the W's really dumb. Okay.
It's dumb. It's not terrible. It's not like the Jacksonville Jaguars logo, which is just awful. It's
at least that's an animal on the side of the helmet, right?
Barely.
But it's like poorly done, designed clip art. It's cheap. The W is just a boring W. It's dull.
I'm also convinced that if Washington didn't have the season they had, and Daniel just had a good, promising rookie year, I think prior to last season, I think Josh Harris was ready to go in full-fledged on a rebrand to get away from what's there now, because you could tell he doesn't like the name.
Yeah, he's never liked it.
No. And I'm not saying the Redskins would have come back, but maybe something back to that direction a little bit more, whether it be Warriors or whatever it would have been. And but because of last year and the success of last year, and then Jaden Daniels' jersey becoming number one seller in the offseason, in January and February it was. And, for a business side, you have to pay attention to that to a point. So, at the bare minimum, there might be just a glimmer of thought, like every time he goes to go to bed, maybe.
Yeah.
But that's about it. It's never going to come back.
Well, I'm just embarrassed that these people bowed down to the pinko leftist protesters, that are deeply offended by the name of a football team. Because
These
it's such
people being MAGA Dan, of course, who
well,
did it.
Dan is the one that did it. Dan
Yeah.
bowed down to it. He's not the one that protested it.
No,
The
no.
protesters are the people who I fault.
Well, I
And
think
Dan is at fault for everything. Don't get me wrong, but it's it's these people who think they need to protest everything, who think everything's horrible. These are the same people who think it's a terrible country and are protesting for Palestine. I mean, it's all that same crowd, and I
well, you
have
have
no
to
respect
understand.
for any of them.
You have to understand if it wasn't for the fact that Snyder was against the wall, I mean, no one can talk me off the fact that I truly believe because of the situation with all the scandals and everything, I'm almost willing, like 99% sure that he thought that, well, if I give up the name, maybe everything else will just kind of die, everyone will applaud because of what I did with the name, and I can move forward, and the scandals will just go in my rearview mirror at a distance. But that didn't happen. He wound up still getting kicked out. The name and the logo was a sacrificial lamb to help save his ownership of the team, and that's it. Because if he would have stayed the course, ignored all the pressure, went through the season, by the offseason it would have been just like any other time in the past. Everything would have died down, and you could have moved forward, and you would have been just
but
fine.
his minority partner, the owner of FedEx,
Yeah, who just passed
I know that.
Redskins.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what really did him in. That's when it changed. Is when
Yeah.
FedEx threatened to pull the name off the team.
The one thing we'll never fully know is when Nike also came out and said they would stop selling merchandise. Who got to Nike there? Because I mean, FedEx saying what they said was one thing. You could have found a new stadium
That was
sponsor.
what put it over the edge.
But Nike, your own manufacturer, saying they're not going to sell your stuff.
I don't know if they even have the right to do that, though. I mean, it might have been an empty threat. I mean, it's a master contract with the NFL.
Right.
The NFL manages. Here's how it works. Teams don't manage their own merchandise sales for the most part. The NFL has a NFL merchandise whole wing that does all of it.
I think they do it through Fanatics now, right? Like
yeah. But the point is that I don't know if Nike could even do that. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
And
that's what I was going to ask.
Major national. Well, I'd have to see the contract. I can't really opine on it. But my point is, it might have been an empty threat. But it's political pressure in the media. We don't need to relive this. My point is that I remain offended by this. I think these new uniforms are a step in the right direction, but it's sort of, you took one step toward the edge of the lava, coming out of the volcano for me. I'm still not there because
one step
not
away
only
from
do
the
I hate,
lava.
I'm deeply offended by the disappearance of Redskins. I also really hate the name Commanders because it's just stupid.
Yes. Two things, both mutually exclusive, but also tied together.
They're both equal. They're both terrible.
Yeah. Yes.
I could have maybe lived. If they had done like the Hogs or something, I could have maybe lived with it. But they picked the all-time stupidest name for a football team ever.
They also picked a name that was like never really ever talked about. Came out of nowhere. Right. I'm just like, I mean, you have Warrior, but no Native American stuff.
Well, don't forget. Here's the thing. We talked to. Did I bring him on the show? I didn't. I talked for a long time, a couple times, to the guy who bought all those trademarks.
Yeah. Right.
They might. I don't think Commanders is one that he owned, and so they might have just not wanted to deal with him because that's a Snyder thing to do. They could have paid him off, paid him some money. I mean, that guy told me that it was a hobby, which I think is nonsense, but that's what he told me. But they could have paid him. Pick a number, and it would have been a drop in the bucket. But Dan Snyder's just petty enough to not want to do that.
Yeah, of course. And look, we don't need to relitigate this whole thing. No. I think if next year this is the white uniform, and then they basically go back to the old school, home red burgundy uniform with the same look, it helps. It's not perfect, but it helps. Also, let's find a new logo. The W is just meh.
I think I could have designed the W.
I mean, do you have a stencil kit from your third grade? Because
but I could have found a font on Microsoft Word that looks somewhat like it.
Well, no, but that's my point. That is it's a classic military 1940s stencil vibe is what they went for. And they found the one that you had. in third grade, it came on like a little piece of plastic, and you used your colored pencil. You remember that?
No,
That's
but
that.
okay.
I think Dave might remember.
I remember that.
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
yeah. That's what they went with.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was something you had as a small child. And
I'd almost I'd almost rather just, you know what, just keep it a nice,
Mhm.
clean, empty look with the lines down with the stripes down the center.
Yeah,
Don't even have a logo at all. Just keep it nice and clean. That's all.
go
Am I
brown
the only one
disaster.
that am I the only one that hates the name Commander? I don't keep up with social media at all.
No.
No,
Most people.
there are a lot that don't like the name and hate the name, but there are also plenty that actually love this whole brand. But you're talking about people that have been fans of the team for like maybe 10 years. They
Right.
Yeah, the
all they've
younger
ever
crowd.
known was
Yeah.
Snyder. All
Right.
they known was Snyder. So
Right.
Redskins is synonymous with
Failure.
losers and failure
Right.
and being pathetic and being the Browns of the league with all the quarterbacks and everything. So to them, it was a fresh start, move
Yep.
forward, But outside of that group right there,
Yeah.
it's
No.
either people are like used to you, they violently hate everything about it, or you have people that are split between like me and Alex, where we both found our ways to kind of deal with the name. I look at it more of an expansion team. Alex just kind of follows through. It's still the same team, but different name, and I've
I
accepted
literally
it.
just don't say the name most of the time.
Right. So, and me, I just treat
Yeah.
it like a literal
Yeah.
expansion team that moved in a couple years ago, and that's it.
Yep.
People hated that I even talk like that, but I don't care.
My problem is I'm the most stubborn person any of you have ever met.
Right.
No, you're not.
And-
Yes, I am.
No, you're not. I could get my brother-in-law in here right now and
I'll
trust
beat.
me.
Nope.
No, you won't.
I got your brother beat, man.
Brother-in-law.
My
Brother-in-law.
brother-in-law.
You got your
Yeah.
brother-in-law beat. Trust me.
I mean, at least you smiled at least a few minutes into this show, which is a lot more than he does in about a full day.
That was because I was petting the dog. That's it.
Yeah, but he doesn't even smile petting his own dog.
Oh, I forgot to even ask. I hope you guys had good 4th of Julys, and I hope all of our listeners had a fun little 4th of July weekend. Forgot to mention that. We got right into the show.
Played plenty of cornhole.
Played some cornhole.
Yeah.
I don't need to know about your bedroom activities.
Oh my God. This is a PG show, Alex.
No, when has it ever been PG?
PG-13, apparently.
Okay, PG-13 is fine. We can stick to that. That means you're allowed 3 curse words a show. Did you know that? That's
I didn't know it was 3.
I think it's still 3. It can't be the F word, but in PG-13 you're allowed like 3 swear words, and no nudity. Well, no, you're allowed nudity too, technically.
It's basically like like Carlin, the comedian, with
Right.
the 7 dirty words. That's like almost the standard, basically.
Well, yeah, that his whole thing is about the FCC, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. All right, let's change gears. Wale, the hip hop artist of DC,
Isn't he just a rapper?
he's a DC native. He's a huge sports fan. Like you'll see him at multiple Washington football games. You'll see him at multiple basketball games and hockey games. And he when he's not on tour, he's in DC going to sporting events. So he's like DC celebrity superfan these days. He was on Cam Newton's webcast. It's not a podcast if it's on TV, folks. It's a webcast. Don't call it a podcast.
Yes.
I didn't know he had a webcast, but continue.
It's just a way for him to continue to show off all his fun hats.
Actually, I read a column in a business thing somewhere about him, and he said he's doing it to, quote, keep the lights on.
Really?
Meaning he's blowing through all his money.
That haberdasher's expensive, man.
He spent it all on bad clothes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, Newton was on. Wale is on Newton, and they start talking about Jaden Daniels. Newton. A lot of people made a big deal about Newton kind of comping him to RG3, and being worried, is he going to be a one-hit or one-year wonder and get hurt because of his build, and then his career's done. And people made a big deal about that part, about what Cam Newton said. I think it was much more interesting to hear the reaction, where I think there's a lot of truth to what Wale says there. He said that Washington fans still have PTSD even after a decade from the RG3 injury. I think we're all worried that the other shoe's going to drop and this thing's going to fall apart with a superstar like Jaden Daniels.
It's a fair concern.
It is.
Jaden Daniels had 891 rushing yards last year, and
Yep.
miraculously only got hit hard a couple times.
He did break a rib, or fractured one at least, we know.
Yeah, right. I mean, but it could have been a lot worse. And he
Right.
does not have the build of a running back. People, there's a lot of revisionist history in the fandom about RG3 because I've noticed like all the fans hate him now, basically. But never forget, the truth of the matter is his 2012 season was one of the best seasons for a quarterback in Washington history.
Yep.
Right.
He had the highest quarterback rating in the history of the team.
Right.
You know,
For
it was
a season, yeah.
For one season, it was an incredible year, and it got his career. We could argue about his narcissism and what role did Dan Snyder play, and Mike Shanahan and all of that. But the fact of the matter is, the injury is what really did him in, and the way the team handled the injury and the way he handled the injury. And it wouldn't surprise me. I wouldn't be shocked. I don't want this to happen, but I wouldn't be shocked. And nobody should be if Jaden Daniels continues to run as much as he did. At some point, he's going to get hurt. That's, I think, what Cam Newton's really saying.
I agree. I think that is a concern. Now, where I do think there's a big difference between the two guys, of course, is that mentality. I think RG3 was way more about the narcissism, like you mentioned.
Yes.
He was way more about let me get a Subway commercial. Let me do advertising here and make bank right away. Whereas it seems like Jaden Daniels is all about football. Like he seems to be way more into the game than Griffin was.
Right.
I think that's without a doubt.
Yeah.
Well, I think the biggest difference. I don't really see him being the kind of runner that like Lamar Jackson is every year. And I think last year was more of a product of, well, they had one receiver, a bunch of veterans, a poor run game, and an offensive line that just wasn't very good. I mean, you could say what you want about, what some of these so-called experts at like PFF and all them say with their very subjective grades and everything. But when you watch the game, he had very minimal time in the pocket. He was forced to run a lot, even though he was trying to get set, get into his read, and try to make a play with his arm. Even when he scrambled out, the first thing what he's doing is looking downfield to try to make a throw. Yeah. And the majority of his runs were just came out of necessity, to be honest with you. Well, now this year, getting a Laramie Tunsil, regardless on why Houston traded him or not, he's still a major upgrade of left tackle for us over what we've had for the last couple of years. You have Josh Connolly at the right tackle spot. Now you have Brandon Coleman moving into left guard, where we all think he's more of a natural player anyway. I mean, the offensive line is much better. I don't think he's going to have to scramble nearly as much. And I think personally, he's going to have more of an onus on, going through his progressions and has to check down and get these throws out of the pocket and make plays from the pocket with his arm, more so than anything else. And I think Deebo Samuels, provided that he can work out to this sense, and we will find this out, that he could be add a piece to the running game and help open up, and or I'm sorry, not open up, help keep the defense honest more so throughout the game and everything. RG3 had a great quarterback rating. He had a good year, but he also played in a system that no team was familiar with. They never saw. Mm-hmm. It took them a long time to adapt to it. And it was really, if you look at it, it was mostly a one-read system. If nothing was there, he had a run. And most of the reads were all created off of real quick plays, short throws, and those short throws set up an occasional deep pass down the field. And that offense is still fairly effective, but it's not the same today as it was then under RG3. RG3 playing in what Jaden Daniels' system last year, I don't think he has the same passing numbers. I don't think he can, because even when Jay Gruden came in, he proved that he had trouble breaking down the defense, making the reads at the line and everything.
Right, playing more of a traditional quarterback role.
But
exactly.
Look, okay, I get it, and we can talk ourselves into this if you want, but the fact of the matter is, Jane Daniels had 148 rushing attempts last year.
Yes.
RG3 had 120. And
Right.
and I don't disagree with you that I don't think Robert Griffin's ability to read a field is as nearly as good as Jane Daniels was. I said, when I did the evaluation of him before Washington drafted him, that he was a downfield, a multi-read quarterback. That's what he did at LSU. And granted, he had 2 stars, and Griffin was not really that. But my point is that if he continues to rush at 148 attempts a year, there's going to be an injury. He is not built like a running back. That's all I'm saying. And he cannot do that. And yes, the offensive line is better. I mean, I get it, but that is not something he can continue.
The one interesting number I would love to see, if it's possible to get it fairly easy, is how many of his was 148 runs, you said?
148.
How many of those runs were dictated due to pressure and him forcing to run because the
I'm not going
to
be. I'd have to go watch them all to figure that out.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Well, no, I'm not saying for you to do that. I'm just saying I was curious if there was I don't know, StatHead does that or whatever.
No, there isn't.
That would be a stat I would love to see someone break down and see just how much closer it is to what I was saying. To quite a bit of his runs were out of because of offensive line, or closer to what you're talking about in terms of him just running the ball because of either design runs or he wanted to run the ball. If that makes sense.
Well, what I will say about this is that Pro Football Reference. Well, first of all, Jane Daniels rushed at 6.0 yards per attempt, and Griffin was at 6.8. However, Pro Football Reference has something called rushing success rate, which I've never really cited in all these things I've done.
Right.
But what they call it is a successful run gains 40% of the yards required on first down, 60% of the yards required on second down, 100% on third or fourth down, and the denominator is over rushing attempts. And so the point is, the successful running percentage for Daniels was higher than it was for Griffin. And so what that would tell me, even though the yards per attempt are lower, so that would tell me that it's probably more controlled rushes than Griffin, who is, if they're more successful, to me, that means they're planned, particularly if the yardage is less. And so that would sort of go along with your theory, Dave, that Griffin was kind of a off the cuff, one read and go sort of rusher.
Right.
That you would be less successful when you're just like totally improvising. So that's the only thing I could say but that nobody keeps the stat you're talking about. But that's close I can get.
That's interesting though.
Well, you guys were talking and my mic fell down. I don't know if you guys heard the mic
we did
fall.
Not.
Oh well. All that was going on, I did find one website that I can't see. They didn't have the total, but they're saying Jaden Daniels averaged 4.4 scrambles a game. Versus
what website are you talking about? You got to
it was your least favorite website out there, Steve.
Oh, PFF.
Yeah. So that's why I didn't really want to give him credit, but
they're Captain Objectivity over there at PFF.
Right. Let's assume that their average there is correct. So that would be 74.8. So 75 rushes of his runs last year. So about half were scrambles.
Well, it kind of makes sense because I know I did a column earlier where I cited, I believe, RG3, Jane Daniels had the highest pressure rate against the rush, and I believe he was at least top 5 in that category, but I think he was number 1 in terms of the pressure rate and the rush getting to him into the backfield. So that number kind of aligns with that and makes a little bit of sense.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I personally think he's better scrambling than he is the organized runs. That's just me.
But the overarching point is he cannot continue to run this much.
No. And I would actually like to see them decrease those designed runs just because they're less effective. And let him throw it. If he needs to, just let him throw it. Yeah. All right. So that was it was an interesting comment. I think anyone who's making a big deal of what Cam Newton said and it was jealousy or whatever, nah. I think you guys are overblowing it.
And guess what? Cam Newton knows a heck of a lot about being an NFL quarterback.
Especially being a mobile quarterback.
A little bit.
He may be a weirdo and all of that and wears bad
Yep.
clothes, but he was an outstanding mobile quarterback.
He was. Very different type. But
he won didn't he not win the league MVP?
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't terrible from the pocket either. He just
No.
I mean, his anticipatory throws are just very inconsistent. His timing routes,
Yeah.
but outside of that, man, he wasn't a bad quarterback either at the same time.
No, he got to the Super Bowl for a reason.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Somehow with Ron Rivera, but we won't get into that.
That's how Ron Rivera got the job here.
Yep. All right. Next topic. Is it too early to panic about Terry McLaurin not having gotten an extension?
No.
This time, the last time he was doing it, it would have been this week that he would have signed the extension. But Steve, you're the contract guy. You say no.
Well, the reason I say no is there's a whole year to go. He signed through 2025. I get the point. And a lot of people, some players, don't want to negotiate during the season. I don't know if McLaurin is one of those. Ideally, yes, you'd want it to be done by now, of course, but is it the end of the world? No, it's not the end of the world yet. They could do this during the year. The agent can certainly do it. But I don't think it's time to panic yet. And anyway, there's time before training camp.
I think the panic is he doesn't show up to camp or he holds out.
Yeah. And the one voice I kind of trust when it comes to things like this is John Keim. And the one thing that John Keim has hinted towards is the fact that, John Keim hasn't heard anything negative or any rumblings of discontent or nothing between both parties. Yeah, there's some frustration. But outside of that, it was like there's all these rumors of McLaurin's agents, is demanding a trade. All that is just someone throwing out there clickbait. And if John Keim says that, I lend to trust it because he doesn't typically he doesn't do what Chris Russell and all them other guys do, just kind of post things right away.
Right.
It's speculation. He doesn't do that. So
Keim is very old school in that respect.
Yeah. Now, Keim did say if it gets down to the point where we're about a week out of training camp, then for some it might be time to panic because more than likely, if it's not done around there or hints of that, there's a chance it could go into camp and he may not get something done at all this year. Like what
maybe,
you're talking
but
to,
I mean,
Steve.
again, but the agent is doing the negotiating. Okay.
Yes.
There's nothing magical about training camp. There isn't. Just some players like to have it done before training camp, but it doesn't take a ton of Terry McLaurin's time during training camp or during the year.
No, right.
The agent calls and fills them in. This is where we are. This is the offer. What do you think?
Yeah.
It's not
the only concern would be, does he not then say, I'm not showing up to training camp? And I don't
respect that. I mean, he had. I've said before on this show that I did not like McLaurin skipping OTAs, and the mandatory mini camp or whatever it was. I don't respect that. And if I were owning a team, like I said before, I would just say, this is a bright line in the sand for me. You need to know up front as an owner, if you skip mandatory stuff, I will not negotiate with you. End of story. That's just me. Right. But I hope he doesn't do that.
Yeah, I would hope not too.
He could.
He doesn't really seem like the type that would anyway, to be honest with you. But we'll see.
I didn't think so, but he skipped other stuff,
Yeah. All right. So let's speaking of deals, there were some RFK Stadium updates. One, I talked about the whole Robert Bob assessment on behalf of the city council that was apparently given to Phil Mendelssohn. It hasn't been given to the rest of the council, they're saying. There's a little infighting on the city council over why Phil Mendelssohn is not sharing the draft of their assessment. The head of the city council not sharing it with the rest of the council right now. It's not in final mode. It's a draft. So that's his reasoning. But if you all are in on in for it together, I don't see why you'd hide it. The other updates.
I would just point out that DC probably has some sort of Public Information Act
Oh
type
yeah,
thing.
they
And
do.
I would file a request under that to get this draft. That's what somebody ought to do.
Yeah, some real media people who would.
Yes.
Yeah.
Listen, I've done this
Yes.
for this show, by the way.
Yep.
I could do it here, I guess. I
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
the Darius Geis police report.
I remember that.
Right.
Way back in the day.
That nobody else did.
Yep. And I'm glad they didn't because it had a lot of PII in there.
Yeah, it was not redacted at all. So
Which was amazing.
I was stunned. Yeah.
Okay, so
we did the right thing, and we didn't even talk about it on this show or mention it at the time because we were afraid to give away his PII.
Yeah. But at this point, it's been so many years.
It doesn't matter now, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. So one of the major DC lobby groups, the Committee of 100, which is the most ridiculous name for like a DC political influence group you could come up with, they came out against the stadium deal. Basically just because they don't think the district's getting enough tax revenue out of it, that they think the team should be paying more for a stadium fee and for property taxes and commercial real estate taxes and things like that. And then lastly, the president of the United States was asked about this. Well, he was also being asked about the flooding in Texas, which can we like not ask about stadium stuff when real things are going on? I think that's a reasonable request of the media. But anyway, Trump weighed in saying that if he were asked by the ownership group to step in to help get it resolved, he would.
Can I just stop right here and point out that Donald Trump, and we're not a political show, what it'll say about Donald Trump is that he says a lot of nonsense off the top of his head that he doesn't really mean, and he's kind of trolling people, and he just spits crap out, and this is one of these things.
Absolutely.
No, he doesn't do that.
He does it all the time. I know, it's amazing.
Stop.
So
no
if
way.
anybody's taking this seriously, it's along the same lines as I'm going to annex Canada. Okay, right. He's not going to. There's some, one of our idiots in our comment section got all offended by this. This is not a thing that's going to happen. This is just Donald Trump talking. He's not going to advocate on behalf of the team for a name. The whole thing is stupid. Okay, this is just Donald Trump being Donald Trump. Period.
I would call it stream of consciousness, but that might be giving it too much credit. Even
it's not really a stream. He just blurts stuff out.
Right.
He's intentionally trolling the media half the time, and the other half of the time it's just like some random thought that pops into his head.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's not serious.
A lot of rambling.
It's not a thing.
Yeah. He's not going to get involved.
And frankly, the president couldn't at the end of the day would have no impact on what a private company and a private association does, with names. So
right, which is ridiculous too. There was I was more talking about the stadium side of it, but yeah, also he did weigh in on the name. You're right.
What was the stadium side of it?
He said he would step in if asked to get the stadium deal done.
And that's what I'm saying. No, he won't. And by the way, the federal government cannot put a dime into it. Okay.
Right. We know that.
Yeah. And what the dummy in our comment section was talking about is apparently Trump said something like, they asked him about taking over the District of Columbia, which Congress has the right to do, by the way. They have the right to oversee the district government, and they could overturn laws that
they do all the time. It's rather annoying.
But for the federal government to truly take over DC is not a thing that's going to happen. Number one. Number two, it would take congressional action, and Congress isn't doing anything of the sort. So this is just Donald Trump babbling because his name's Donald Trump. That's all it is.
Right. Last thing I'll say on the stadium, that this was interesting. I saw this just before the show. The Bears are also going to be building a new stadium soon. If you didn't know that now you do. They sent out a survey to all their season ticket holders about asking them to like prioritize what's important, like in a survey. So like, is it the tailgating? Is it food or amenities or blah, 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 blah. They just kind of created lists and questions for their fans. I don't think Washington's ever done this really for the most part. I asked Dave before the show. Dave, you said they did something for the current facilities, but not for anything in the future.
Well, they were hinting toward with the future in terms of like when you talk about the season, like the ticket prices, would you spend X amount of dollars for per seat for season tickets? Would basically equated to, when I looked at it, was basically both two of my seats together would have cost me for one seat. I'm like, well, obviously you're talking about the new stadium on that one, because there ain't no way you're charging me that much for this stadium right here. Right. Now they did ask about tailgating and stuff like that, but it was more or less, and I didn't get no vibe of how important is tailgating for the new stadium like that and everything. Because even the prior year, they talked about tailgating and the food and everything. So it was just the same old questions from the year before after this season, but there was no kind of hint like, well, how important is tailgating for the next stadium? So.
Right. Well, because there won't be any. So, there.
And there's not going to be room.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting that the Bears at least did a survey. If they listen to it,
even if they don't pay attention to it, even if it doesn't mean anything, it gives the fans, makes the fans feel like the ownership is paying attention to them.
Right. And that has capital.
Yeah. Because ultimately, they're the ones that are going to be buying the tickets. The Dave Earls of Chicago are buying the tickets, and they should ask Dave. Dave's a current season ticket holder. Right. And they haven't yet.
By the way, the Dave Earl of Chicago, I feel looks a lot like Dave, just more mustache.
Right? Even possibly. With a giant
probably
pizza
more
box
hair.
Probably more hair. Pizza box in front of him.
But, well, not on top of your head. Rest of the body more hair, because, it's cold.
True.
Yeah. And just more pizza overall, sure. And
probably maybe a foot taller, too.
I would think a foot more around. I'm basically creating a fat Chris Farley bald version.
I think it's all yes, all of those things.
I'm going back to the old bear skit from SNL in my brain.
The Bears.
Yeah, such a good skit.
Yeah, well,
that's not something we can say for the modern SNL very much.
No, they haven't had anything like that in a long time.
You know what is good about the modern SNL? It's the two guys that do the news thing. They're good.
Colin Jost and the other guy. Yeah.
Them, yeah. Other than that, I can leave all of it.
They've always been solid when it comes to the fake news stuff. Even you go back to Dennis Miller, but
he was too non-politically correct for today.
Yeah. But I'm saying he's not usually viewed as the best one, I feel like, who did it, but even he was solid at the news.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Let's do our position group breakdown. We've actually made it to the point where we should be doing our position group breakdown, even though we're always worried we don't have enough content this time of year.
We always do. I told someone the other day that I think I could legitimately do, you and I, Alex and Dave, we could do a podcast on any topic whatsoever you could name.
Give us 2 minutes to prep.
Yes, we could do 30 minutes, I think, on legitimately any topic you could possibly name at this. We've done this so long. We've done like 1,000 of these shows, literally.
Yeah.
So we could babble our way through anything. So our fears are always unfounded with this.
Right. One day we're just going to do an episode about the Civil War.
Just to see if we can do it.
Yeah. I bet. Well, look, I'm sure you guys know your military history really well. I was always a history buff in high school. So
I bet Sean Conti want us to play a game one time on
He wanted us to play a D&D version of football. It did not go well. That was
it was terrible.
Yeah. All right.
I think I did at least 30 minutes as Kermit the Frog on one of these too.
You definitely did.
In my Kermit the Frog voice. Yeah.
Back when we had Robbie, he did all those good voices. That was fun.
Robbie and I could really do voices. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I think I got sick and tired of Kermit by like minute 30 though.
Yeah. Let's talk running backs, guys. That is our position group breakdown for this week. Is we're going to be talking about the running back room. Dave, I believe you wrote this up, right?
Yes.
All right. So let's talk about the superstar running back room that we got going on here. By the way, Steve's favorite website, they ranked this running back group 29th out of all 32 teams, I believe. I don't know if you saw that today. That got
As long as they don't telling us it's an objective ranking, I mean, they can rank whatever they want.
Yeah. Well, and we're in ranking season where people just do that.
I just would point out we've never done rankings in 10 years in this show. We've never done them because all of us think they're dumb.
I will rank things right now. Number 1, stadiums. Number 2, food.
Uniforms have got to be number 1 for you, man. Come on.
I know.
Yeah, right.
Yes. Uniforms are 1A with stadiums. All right. Dave, let's talk about running backs.
All right. So how quick do we want to go through this?
We have about 15 minutes. So just don't babble forever, Dave.
Well, that's going to be tough for me. You might
have
to find a way to mute me.
All right. Dave,
let's cut you off.
Let's start with let's work our way from bottom to top here or something. I don't know. What do you want to do? Bottom, top, bottom?
Go bottom.
Yeah,
top.
Right.
Bottom top. So Chris Rodriguez. Let's bang through the bottom guys quick.
Okay, Chris Rodriguez.
No pun intended.
Well, he's the one that was Steve's favorite last year going into the season. Start off a bit slow, but even though his minimal attempts on 35 attempts, he had that success rate that you were talking about earlier. I included in this column. He had a 74.3% success rate on gaining the necessary yards on per down on what he needed for a first down. So he was by far the leader of the room in that aspect. Averaged 4.9 yards per carry and was a whopping 19.2 yards per game. Jerry McNichols, he's your veteran backup. He's at 3.8 yards per game. His success rate is 41.5%. He had total 41 attempts, 11.1 yard per game average. Austin Eckler, he was more of our pass catching back out. Now he missed like 4 or 6 weeks of the year, I think, right? He was missing.
Find out. Keep going.
Yeah.
I'll find out.
So he had a success rate of 51.9% on his rushing attempts, which is actually better than our starting running back at Brian Robinson Jr. at 48.7%. And he take kind of Chris Rodriguez
played in 12 games last year, so he missed 5.
Okay. And outside of Chris Rodriguez, 4.9 yards per attempt. Eckler was second on the team for running backs at 4.8 yards per attempt. But when you look at the success rate, I looked at some of the top running backs in the league. I mean, granted, it's not fair to really compare them to like Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry's of the world because of, they're just stud running backs. They play for great offenses, good offensive lines in front of them, and so forth. So when you compare him to guys like, even Bijan Robinson, he's a stud, but he led the league at a 60.2% success rate. So obviously, we're not going to get anywhere near that. But what was interesting is Rico Dowdle for the Cowboys, who was, I believe, an undrafted free agent, a bit undersized, playing behind a pretty bad offensive line because they were pretty beaten all year. They had Cooper Rush all season long on the most part, and only one real good, reliable receiver in CeeDee Lamb, and yet he was ranked 7th on success rate on his runs at 53.6%. I mean, I thought that was pretty damning for...
Maybe that's contrary to what Washington fans believe. You can't just throw any running back out there and expect them to be successful if you have a decent tackle.
Yes.
How about that?
There you go.
So I think that plays into it quite a bit. Yeah.
And so in the grand scheme of things, Brian Robinson Jr., he ranked 19th. Oh, I'm sorry, not 19th. He ranked 19th in the league in terms of success rate. He also was ranked 19th league in yards per carry average for running backs with 150 or more carries a year at 4.3 yards per carry. So Brian Robinson Jr. is just not the answer as a lead every down, 3 down running back. He's got a great story after his being shot. I get all that. He seems to be a fan favorite, but I mean, I really wish we would have addressed the running back situation in the offseason a little bit better, but that's what we got.
Yeah, I am with you there. I was looking at the numbers in your column, and it got me thinking. So I double checked. Uh, who do you think it ran more, Saquon Barkley or the entire Washington running back room?
I think Saquon Barkley had a ton of carries last year.
He did. He did. Uh, Saquon Barkley had 5 more runs than the entire Washington running back room
Which
put
is
together, which is absurd. He also had significantly more yardage than the entire running back room.
and
Yeah,
even through all those attempts that he had, he still wound up having a success rate of, oh, I had it right here. I know
Saquon,
Saquon Barkley.
52%.
Yeah, 52% on his runs.
Yeah.
So I mean, even the high volume runs, he was still far more successful.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, to me, when you have that high volume runs compared to someone who had probably, I mean, not even, I mean, more than less than half that, and he still couldn't even come anywhere near him in terms of his success rate on his runs. And
Yeah.
Brian Robinson Jr. that is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Don't forget that Jaden Daniels is Washington's running back.
yes,
or at least he was last year. You're definitely right
Last
about
year.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
I-
all these because all these carries and stuff. I mean, he had 148 carries.
right. Which
And
isn't
120 of those would go. If they didn't have a mobile quarterback, 100
right.
Sam Howell back there. Those carries would go to running backs.
yeah.
At least
So
a chunk of them. You're right. And so
Right.
if they cut down on his design runs next year, we should see the runs from running backs go up pretty significantly. If it's about 75 runs you take out from,
mm-hmm.
The fact of the matter is,
yeah.
look, can we just be blunt and say Washington needs to find a real running back, like an elite
Absolutely.
level running back?
Yeah, they
That's the
absolutely
truth.
do. And look, I get why people might be hopeful that this kid they drafted is going to be a
Look,
diamond in the rough.
I watch this film.
Yeah,
It's the fans being fans, and I respect that. But what I saw from you're talking about Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt.
yeah,
I saw
Right.
a guy who took advantage of a lot of weak defenses. He was not creating a lot of those plays. It
Right.
were wide open gaps and players who were not at his level athletically. I didn't see him create a lot. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm no film expert, but I didn't get the sense that guy is a diamond in the rough at the NFL level, because he was playing terrible defenses in the Mountain West.
Right.
Yeah. Now, I also, you say that. I also think that there is a big thing with running backs where if you put them in the zone offense and they're the right kind of guy for that, there's scheme fit in running the ball just as much as there is in every other
Oh, there
part.
is, and I'm not saying he's going to be terrible or anything. I think the positivity is, I think, more wishful thinking than possibly reality. That's all I'm saying.
I think
I get that.
I think he might fit the mold a little bit better in terms of for this offense and what they want to do compared to a Brian Robinson Jr. I mean, it's not to say that he is going to become a potential rookie of the year. I mean, remember, like I've made the reference before to Isaiah Pacheco. I mean, he was a 7th-round guy because a lot of what you said also applied to him as well. I mean, he didn't play a lot of great defenses, and when he did play good defenses, I mean, he was mediocre at best when he played. It was, but when he got into the right system, he got onto the team that had a lot of offense around him, he was able to flourish, and then he became a pretty good starting running back. It could happen. And this running back room, yeah. And you're right. And but this running back room gives him a wide open opportunity to become that Pacheco, and I think that's what a lot of people are kind of hoping for, that he takes the reins of that and just goes. Now I'm kind of hoping that he gives a little more to the offense, but he's more just giving another piece, another potential dynamic piece until we can get somebody
I
next
just don't want to
year.
get people's hopes up, okay?
Yeah.
That's
No,
all. And look, I mean, Alfred Morris came out of nowhere, wasn't he a seventh
right.
round pick?
Yeah.
To be one of the
But
best
yeah.
six, to be one of the best running backs Washington ever had for a couple years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it could happen. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I'm not saying Krosky Merritt's going to be terrible. I'm just saying I didn't see it
Right.
in the
Right.
college film. I'm no expert, but I didn't see it, and I think he's got a long way to go. That's
I,
all I'm saying.
And
I
part of the reason why most of the offseason I was pushing, hoping that they would at least consider a DK Dobbins. I mean,
Yeah.
the injury he had last year wasn't severe. He
mm-hmm.
came back and had it, and he closed out the year really well. I mean, he looked like he was back to his old self from Baltimore. I mean, he was worth a shot at least to give a try.
Yeah.
I was pushing for that to happen, to be honest with you.
I
Well, they
mean,
didn't listen.
yeah.
Nope.
To me, this is the one position group that, like you guys have said, that they probably should have upgraded and they didn't. More than anything, uh, you have a bruiser, you have a guy who you can kind of trust in short yardage, even though Robinson's not exactly that. He's more that than anything else. You have your pass catching guy, but you need the guy who can be the big play guy, and we're hoping JCM is that, but we don't know. It's not the best chance, especially at a seventh round pick.
I'm telling you right
But
now,
yeah,
like I've said before, nobody knows. I don't think anybody legitimately knows more than me about
odds.
draft pick success odds because I've
Yeah,
Yeah.
done detailed studies of it. And having a guy come out of the seventh round who is a solid plus level starter is an absolute unicorn.
yeah,
Right.
yep.
Single digit odds at
And
best.
low single digit odds.
Yes,
Yeah,
it is a unicorn. And
yeah,
so it could happen. I just don't, I want to temper everybody's expectations. That's all
Right.
I'm saying.
yeah. Um. Well, I think we kind of covered them pretty decently here, and,
So
and
Well,
quickly
the,
too.
well,
good
the,
breakdown.
Yeah.
well, the only remaining ones are Casimir Allen, Demetri Felton, and Michael
Yeah.
Wiley, and now that group, Casimir Allen, former receiver, adds some potential to the return game and so forth. I think he's one of that favor would be in line for like the practice squad or whatever. And
Yeah, yeah. Kaz Allen, interesting guy, because of that whole like converted receiver thing. Little guy too, right? He's
yeah,
not
I think
he's
he's like
like
5'8" or 5'9".
yeah. I think he was kind of a slot receiver when he was first
Yeah,
drafted. I'm trying to Google what his height was. 5'8". You're right.
yeah,
Yeah, Kaz Allen is not a big player.
no,
So, I don't know how that kind of fits into a running back room in the end, being that little. Um,
It
but
doesn't. Those guys
yeah,
no.
probably aren't going to make the team. It's not even worth the discussion.
yeah, yeah. All right. Well, thanks for doing the running backs. Last thing we wanted to talk about the Netflix series about quarterbacks called Quarterbacks, I believe. Had an interesting moment with old Washington quarterback Kirk Cousins. Captain James T. Kirk, Tiberius Kirk Cousins, and his complaint about his situation in Atlanta, where he's getting paid. I think the legal term is oodles of money, Dave and Steve, right?
That is
Uh,
a legal term of art. Yes,
yes,
oodles of money.
yes. And he's now a backup, and no one wants to trade for him because of it.
And not
Uh,
only that, ESPN had a story on it, and
yeah,
the Falcons management said, well, he's more valuable to us as a backup, even at this amount of money. I mean, it's first of all, nobody should feel sorry for him. I mean, he's making a truckload of money. He's made a truckload of money. I have no sympathy for him whatsoever. But I think it was an odd choice. I get his point from his perspective. Why'd they bring me in here and pay this, and now I'm not going to get to play? It sounds like they had a bit of buyer's remorse probably, and they saw
yeah,
an opportunity and they took it, and they realized maybe
Yeah.
this guy isn't what we thought.
yeah.
So I
Well,
don't have any sympathy. I get what he's saying, but I mean, he's making tens of millions of dollars a year, so nobody should feel sorry for
he's
him.
making more this year than I think any of us will probably make in our careers.
Possibly,
Like
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
getting
no doubt.
or yeah, Yeah. So I don't feel that sorry for him because
Absolutely not.
yeah. Yeah.
Nope.
Also, you know what? Overall, you had a great career as a fourth round pick. So like don't
Yeah.
complain too much.
Yeah, he had a
Yeah.
good career.
I
Yeah.
get.
And it looks like
All I'm saying is I get his perspective. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
From an
from
ego
his.
fish. Yeah.
and it looks like Atlanta with that pick with Michael Penix Jr. wound up being the wise decision after all.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
So sorry, Kirk. But if you really hate it, you could always just retire and forfeit the $30-something million or whatever it is
You
that
could
you'd
do
have.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
He's not going to do that. He loves money.
he
Oh
does
yeah.
love money. He's going in the Hall of Fame for collecting money. Is what he is going in the Hall.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
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 Absolutely.
For when it comes to the Hall of great players getting paid.
He's in the hall of overpaid quarterbacks for sure.
Well, yeah,
NFL
we need a
players.
good name for this hall of
I
whatever
saw
it
a
is.
column about this. I'll have to dig it up maybe for next time.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I saw it too. I just can't remember what the title
Yeah.
of it was. So, all right, guys, that should do it for this week. I will be tuning in and joining the show from my compound up in the north. But we will see you all next week, guys.
All
Later.
right. Later.
I didn't mean to hang up. I hung up by accident. I was trying to mute it.